I've included this chart here in the video. If you've taken my Math 96 class, you have this, but it should be in your book on page 30, and you can also go to the e-text and see. If it's not on page 30, it might be on a page, before or after, depending on how they changed the next edition of the book here. So this page really explains the ways to translate English into math. So if you see the words in that column, then they mean addition. If you see the words in the next, that means subtraction. So why are some of these red instead of regular black? And the reason for that is that red words change the order. So if I said 5 added to 2, I'm not saying 5 plus 2. I'm saying 5 is being added to 2. So you start with 2 first. So that's why the red words are pointed out that way, because they change the order that the numbers come in, or the letters, depending if it's a variable. Okay, so let's use that to translate a sentence here and find the number. So the quotient of a number in 2, comma means pause. Anytime you see a comma, it means pause and separate. Minus 1/3 is the quotient of the number in 6. So I'm just going to tackle those word for word. So when it says the quotient, that's a word that means to divide. And it's best to use a fraction for that. So the quotient of, the next part is the numerator, and separates the denominator. And is what separates terms, or in this case, numerator and denominator. So the quotient of a number, we don't know what number, so let me use x to represent that. And denominator 2. Then pause and separate. So completely separate. Minus means subtract. 1/3. Is means equals. The quotient, so I'm going to do divide again, of the numerator, which is that unknown number, and separates the denominator, which is 6. So the quotient of a number and 2 minus 1/3 is the quotient of the number and 6. All right, we got an equation now. So then we just need to solve this equation. And it is a rational equation. So that means I'm looking for the least common denominator of 2, 3, and 6. And that's going to be 2 times 3, which is 6. If I want to look at it as 2 times 3 instead, that's fine. But so I'm going to take that least common denominator and I'm going to multiply it to every term in the equation here. So multiply 6. And that's going to divide with the denominators. Maybe not completely, because 6 is 3 times 2. So then for the first term, that's only going to cancel a factor of 2. And that's going to leave 3 times x, which is 3x. For the second term, that's going to cancel out the factor of 3. And that's going to leave 2 times 1, which is 2. And on the other side of the equal sign, that's actually going to cancel out completely and leave just the x. So now we have a linear equation, and I just want to get my number terms on one side, my variable terms on the other, so I'm going to subtract 3x from both sides of the equal sign. Then I have negative 2 equals minus 2x. Just need to divide that negative 2 coefficient of the x term on the right side. And then I'll have 1 equals x, or x equals 1, same thing. So I think that the number is 1. Let me see if that makes sense. So let me check that out. In my translation, the quotient of a number and 2 minus 1/3 is the quotient of that number and 6. Does that make sense? Well, if I put these terms into sixth, then I need to get the common denominators. So 3/6 minus 2/6 equals 1/6. That makes sense. So now I can state my conclusion. The number is 1. And that answers the question.